All right, guys, it's February 1st. You know what time it is. It's Steam Deck launch month. Woo! Hey guys, Trick here. Hope you're having a good one. Now that we're on the home stretch of the February 25th release of the Steam Deck, it's time to talk about my top 10 most hyped games and game news that are coming to the Steam Deck as we get close to the final production units. And since we're getting close to the final release, I figured today is a good chance to actually take off all of the training wheels and look at our Steam Deck as more of a production solution instead of kind of a, wishful list of what we want to see from the deck. So today, no more Proton GE, no more terminal command line and extra flat pack packages. We're going to be doing everything from the native Steam experience. I am using big picture mode because they have yet to release SteamOS 3, but I'm going to be using my mouse as little times as possible, and I'm going to be focusing primarily on controller input because over the past couple weeks, Valve has announced their Steam Deck Verified program, and they've actually started adding lists to their database, and it shows all the different games that have been rated to this point. As for the platform, we're going to be testing our games today using my overclocked hacking deck. Now, I've actually created a video here where I walked you guys through the actual PC build itself as well as how I overclocked it in order to account for some of the performance differences between what Valve has actually said is a good hacking deck solution versus what has been confirmed through some of the performance leaks. But I don't want to get into a lot of that here. We've got videos here on the channel. Check out the playlist up at the top right. We've talked about hardware, software, operating system, game scope, a lot of other cool, technical jargon going on with the Steam Deck. You can learn a lot more by checking out those videos. But today, I don't want to be covering all that. I want to be focusing on the games and the type of performance we should expect going into the February release.
Number 10.
We've covered emulation a couple times here on the channel. We actually have an entire dedicated video where we talk about Nintendo 64, the PlayStation 3, even Yuzu. We played Metroid Dread on this thing. And so if you want to know about that kind of information, go and check out that video. But in that video, I did have to do a bunch of corner cutting. We had to install stuff from software packages, from the websites. So it wasn't really a good, it just works experience. But sure enough, I was able to get RetroArch installed through the Steam Marketplace, and I was able to enable the different DLC to enable the graphics cores that enable the individual emulators. So today, I'm going to be trying it out with the PSXE, I think it's remastered or reloaded, whatever it is, we're going to be playing some PlayStation 1. Now, the game I selected for this is Final Fantasy Tactics. It is one of my most favorite games of all time, and sure enough, Linus Tech Tips emulated this game, I think on their 1X Mini video this past week, so I figured I would showcase how it would work on the Steam Deck. Now, this is an early level mission battle that is honestly pretty easy. This is the Swiggy Woods. We've got Algus, we got Delita, and 4 of my homies. We're gonna go and battle some of these goblins and bombs. And anyways, it looks really good. It plays just fine, as we would expect from a PlayStation 1 emulator. So if y'all were wanting to play this class of hardware through RetroArch, it's gonna work just fine.
Number 9.
I wanted to put Fallout 4 here because I've been watching you guys over at the Steam Deck subreddit, and a lot of y'all want to be seeing, Skyrim, Oblivion, and Morrowind getting played, but I already covered those in my other top 10 video, so I thought I would show Bethesda's other popular series, Fallout, a little bit of love in this one. Now, talking about the Steam Deck Verified program, this game is probably not going to be anything more than playable because once we load this up through our big picture mode, we are prompted with that little GUI window where we can go in and select our options and our graphical settings and all that. But in order to be verified, you're not allowed to have that kind of a prompt on there. So take that for what it's worth. Hopefully Bethesda gets it figured out for the Steam Deck release, but running at 800p and high detail settings as we go through this first little engagement at Lexington and Concord, when we first get to introduce to the Minutemen, Dogmeat's able to go and chomp on some raiders. I make a few different kills with my, my pipe shotgun, my pipe rifle or whatever it's called. We're running right at 60 FPS, so this is a really good experience. But there are some heavier parts of the game once you start getting into downtown Boston that could be a little bit harder to render in the game. Since we're running it high, feel free to dial it back down to medium. It'll probably look just as good as high, but for all intents and purposes, Fallout 4 runs just fine on the Steam Deck.
Number 8.
Now, a couple weeks ago, we did see an unfortunate tweet coming across over on Twitter where the developers of City and Skylines decided that they were not going to be supporting the Steam Deck release out of the box. Now, that's not a bad thing, right? Because it is an older game, it's been around for quite a while, and those developers really just don't have the resources to kind of convert and make sure that all these other things are working. So a couple of you were really curious how it would run on the Steam Deck over at the subreddit, and I figured I've got a key, let's see how it works. And in parallel, some of y'all were asking how all of this works with all the different Steam Workshop mods, because City and Skylines is pretty boring just outright, so you gotta spice it up with some of these other mods. So I went ahead and installed, I think it was like accurate road building, able to build 25 different areas. I don't play City and Skylines much, but sure enough, we're loading up the New York scenario here. We're just gonna start a little starter city. I have no idea how the mechanics of this game work, but since it's a simulation game and it's not very graphically oriented, I do expect the Steam Deck to be running full bore on all 4 cores at 3.5 gigahertz. But as you can see, if you look at the top left there, we've got the Mango HUD GUI going on. We are able to get pretty playable performance, but to be honest, anything above 30 for this game would probably be sufficient for most people, and you could probably engage game scope to limit your frame rate and in order to extend your battery life for quite a bit. But sure enough, guys, City and Skylines works right out of the box. It might not be ranked as Steam Deck verified. You do have to use your mouse to click around quite a bit. The text is really, really small, so maybe there's some modifications that increase the size of the text there. But if you've played this game a lot of times, you don't even need the text for the most part. So overall, it's very playable. You guys might enjoy it.
Number 7.
Now, this wouldn't be a top 10 list without mentioning The Witcher 3. They got a Netflix special, so there's gotta be a Steam Deck special, right? Now, this is gonna be our first Steam Deck verified game that is playable. It's not full-fledged verified just yet, so hopefully CD Projekt Red can get their act together and fix this game before the Steam Deck launch. But sure enough, with our standard Xbox controller here, we're able to load up The Witcher 3 just fine. And for our detail settings, we're running at 800p with medium across the board, and post-processing effects are also at medium. Now for this benchmark loop, I'm just in this first little intro area, I think around the stoneworks, and we're just gonna be riding Roach all the way down to the garrison down by the water. Now, as we're going through this kind of lighter foliage area, we are able to get in the low to mid 50s in the frame rate, which is actually really great for this little Steam Deck. But as we get into the more dense foliage and closer towards the swamp, we actually start to see dips down into the mid 40s to, upper 40s, which isn't a very bad experience. But if you guys were looking to buy back a little bit of extra performance, dialing settings down to low, we should see a pretty playable experience across the board. So guys, promise me that once you get your hands on your Steam Deck, you download The Witcher 3 and help Geralt go slay some monsters.
Number 6.
Death Stranding is not a new game by any stretch, but it's new to me, so it deserves a spot on the list. Well, maybe because it's also one of the first Steam Deck verified games that are out there. It works right out of the box, there's no tweaking needed for the controller, and sure enough, from a performance perspective, at 800p in medium detail settings, this game just looks phenomenal. Now, there's a couple caveats here with performance that I do want to highlight. Since this is a very cinematic game, we should expect the frame rates to vary quite a bit depending on the terrain you're coming across, as well as the different types of artifacts that are going across the screen. So if it's raining, or as we get closer to the waterfall down here at the bottom of the valley here, we do see frame rates dip quite a bit. But as we're hiking up mountains and we're staring straight into the hillside, we're able to get upwards of 60 FPS. So overall, I think Death Stranding is a great game, and if you are wanting to partake in this running simulator, it's going to work just fine on the deck.
Number 5.
Now that we're in the top 5, it's time to get down to business. Now, Rust has been around for a long time. It's actually one of the most popular games that's on Steam right now. But what makes it one of the most hyped games going into the Steam Deck launch is its compatibility with EAC, or Easy Anti-Cheat. Just these past couple of weeks, Valve did announce through like a press release that they are working with developers, and they've released some documentation that will hopefully help streamline the process when it comes to enabling EAC on their software. hopefully fostering a little bit of extra adaptation from these developers as we get into the Steam Deck release, as well as just the broader Linux community in general. Now, Rust has had access to EAC for quite some time, but there's one caveat that I wanted to highlight in this video specifically. Now, to get Rust working with EAC, you have to be using the Proton experimental version, which is pretty straightforward on our side, but once you get inside of the game and actually click on a server, it's not going to work just right out of the box. You have to connect to a server that has EAC disabled. And if you're familiar with Rust, there's lots of cheaters all around, so disabling that server side, it is kind of a risky affair. However, there are a couple of different servers that are out there, and you guys know me, I love computer hardware, so I went ahead and whipped up a custom server on my own hardware utilizing the LGSM, that's the Linux Game Server Manager, and I got a Rust server instance up in no time. So here's a question for you, and definitely go answer it down in the comments. Would y'all be interested in a Steam Deck only Rust server? I would be enforcing it through a whitelist, and you would have to send me one of those lovely deck pics in order to get access to the server. So let me know if that's something the community would be interested in. Regardless of how that came out, I was able to log into my server, and sure enough, the game worked just fine. I am running at 800p in exclusive full screen mode, and I'm only running the quality settings at level 2. Now, I don't want to go down to level 1 because a lot of the grass and a bunch of the other graphical effects, it does get lost and the game kind of looks bland and boring at that point. But I am able to get anywhere between the upper 30s to about the low to mid 50s, so the game is quite playable, but if you are expecting a 60 FPS experience from Rust on the Steam Deck, you're going to have to dial back settings or engage some sort of global FSR option, which I don't know how that's actually going to work with the production Steam Deck units, so I'm not going to be showing it on today's video. One last thing to mention about Rust is controller support is garbage. Sure, you can run around and pick stuff off the ground and beat up bushes and trees and whatnot, but if you actually see a container, there's no way to actually pick up items through the controller. Luckily, the Steam Deck has the little touchpads and stuff that act like a mouse, so that might be a good workaround, but as it stands, I don't really see this as being Steam Deck playable anytime soon.
Number 4.
Now, number 4 is actually very similar to Rust, but what's news here and it gets me extra hyped is that the Valheim developers got their hands on a deck and they were able to get the game loaded up and running. And you guys know me, I've got to try out these kind of claims, and sure enough, with Proton Experimental, everything works just fine. There are some issues when it comes to the text size. Even if you drag the scaler all the way up to 115%, it's really hard to read. But if you've played this game enough, you don't really need to read the prompts, but a newbie like me, I'm gonna be an old man and have this screen like right in front of my face. But again, this is another one of those survival games that if you've got access to a server, you can connect to it. But again, I loaded up a new LGSM server instance of Valheim, and I was able to connect to it just fine. If y'all want another one of those Steam Deck dedicated servers, let me know down below. Now, logging into Valheim for the first time ever, this game looks amazing. I'm going to be running at 800p with all settings at medium, and I'm getting anywhere between the upper 30s all the way up to the upper 50s. Now, I like the medium setting because the ambiance just looks so great. We've got all the different bloom effects, we got all the different foliage going on, so the game just looks phenomenal. You can buy yourself about 10 FPS by going to low, but you kind of lose that immersion, but that might be worthwhile on a handheld device. So this is another good instance where we could probably optimize our settings quite a bit in order to bump our performance to that 60 FPS threshold. But if you guys like 30 FPS and think it's suitable on the deck, you're going to be just fine over at the medium detail setting.
Number 3.
Let's talk Monster Hunter Rise. Now, this game was just released on the PC just a couple weeks ago, and this is a great opportunity for that Steam Deck versus Switch head-to-head battle that we've been craving. We mentioned it in our emulation video, and the Monster Hunter Rise is going to be a great opportunity for the Steam Deck to kind of flex its muscles in favor of the PC Master Race. Now running this game at 800p in high detail settings, I'm able to load and run the demo version of the game and going into I think the beginner level hunt and get right at a almost locked 60 FPS. So I do believe this is a good opportunity to dial back to medium and drop a little bit of the visual quality to get that locked 60 FPS gameplay. However though, as I'm running around slaying some of these monsters and running through the different foliage and the different biomes that are around, I gotta say this is a pretty interesting looking game, and a lot of you guys that were hyped up for this game over in the Discord, I think you guys are gonna enjoy it on the deck.
Number 2.
Coming in at number 2 is God of War, and guys, I am pumped to play this on the Steam Deck. I released a short just a little while ago, and sure enough, you guys are excited to play it too. I'm so glad that Sony was actually able to have a successful port to the PC for once, and it has been well accepted by the community, and sure enough, it plays really well on the Steam Deck. Now, I'm going to be playing this at 800p at the original detail settings because that's the way it was meant to be played on the original PlayStation 4. And sure enough, as we go through this intro section, we actually get right around 25 to 30 FPS. So it's not exactly that 30 FPS experience that we were hoping for. So we do have a couple of different options to bump up performance just a little bit. Now going down to the low detail setting will enable you to get above 30 FPS for the most part, but you do lose a little bit of that eye candy that, let's be honest guys, for this kind of game, the eye candy just adds a little bit of that extra immersion that we need when we're slapping around demons and all that. But the other alternative and what I actually prefer in this game is the in-game FSR. Now, I've seen all sorts of comments on all of my different videos here on the channel saying that FSR is just not worth it on these 7-inch screens. So I wanted to run a little bit of an experiment. I'm going to be going between FSR on at quality mode versus FSR off, and I wanted to see if y'all could tell the difference. Are you ready? Let's do it. All right, this one's going to be FSR off. You can notice that the frame rate is a little bit worse, and this is FSR on, and the frame rate is above 30 FPS. And to be honest, guys, FSR in quality mode looks fantastic on this little 7-inch screen. So hopefully this helps shed some of the doubt of FSR's feasibility for the Steam Deck, and hopefully gives you guys a little bit of optimism if your game just doesn't really quite make it to the 30 or 60 FPS, and hopefully this gets integrated into GameScope. So Plagman, my DMs are open, let's get this tested. But overall guys, God of War on the Steam Deck is going to be a phenomenal experience, and I'm really excited to play it with you guys on the deck.
Number 1.
Now, I know you guys are going to flame me for it. The game releases on February 24th, the day before the Steam Deck release. So until then, you're just going to have to be satisfied with Dark Souls 3. It is Steam Deck verified, one of the couple games that are out there. And honestly, guys, the game plays very well. At 800p in medium detail settings, I'm able to die several times in a row in a very rapid succession without a problem. I've never played this game before in my life. I'm shocked at just how difficult the game is. So if you want to bash your head against your deck while dying in this game, feel free to download it and play your heart out. I like it. It plays well. So hopefully you guys enjoy it on the Steam Deck. And with any luck, From Software will announce the official software requirements for the game on the PC, and I'll let you guys know over at the community tab if I think this is going to perform just as well as Dark Souls 3 here. And that's going to be my top 10 list of my most hyped games that I'm going to be installing on my Steam Deck come February 25th. Let me know down in the comments what you guys plan on installing it once you get your hands on the deck. As always, thank you guys for sticking to the end of the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Turk Force, we'll catch you in the next one.